Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Hello and welcome back to a very special video on All for United. We replaced the tactical preview because we were getting sick of telling you how bad Manchester United are. You don't need to hear it from us. There's no tactically analysing these clowns at the minute. So on this very special day, we have officially announced Erik Ten Hag. We have a very special panel. We're going to try and fit in the word special a couple of more times before I hand it over. But Cal, Stu, and we've got Mark Lamberts, who by our standards, he's a Ten Hag expert. So we're very, very happy to have you with us, Mark. Obviously, go and check him out on Twitter as well. He's got a fantastic article of Ten Hag's time at Utrecht, I believe it's pronounced. But yeah, got Abdul as well. So the perfect panel. Hope everyone's well. I'll hand it over to you, Stu, to start with, just to get some initial reaction. Obviously, we've got a full show later about this. But, you know, Erik Ten Hag, officially Manchester United manager. How good is that to say?
Yeah, well, you know, for me, he was the one that I wanted. I think the fan base was split 50-50. Some wanted Ten Hag, some wanted Pochettino. I was kind of against Pochettino by the fact that he never rebuilt a side like Ten Hag had done. I mean, that Ajax side of 2019, it was pretty much stripped bare, wasn't it? If you can think about it, he lost Donny van der Beek, he lost Ziyech, he lost De Ligt, he lost Frankie de Jong, he lost 4 really good players. When you actually consider what he's done with players that he's brought in, a little bit like Sebastian Haller, who couldn't hit anything for West Ham, and has turned him into not only a goal scorer, but actually a Champions League goal scorer. And I think that's the key element to what Ten Hag has done with Sebastian Haller and Tadic again. He's taken him to a next level, is the fact that he's transformed Haller into a Champions League goal scorer. And that's quite critical, really. I'm absolutely buzzing, really, because I love how flexible he is. And I've just got the feeling with with how meticulous his preparations are, with how solid his training sessions are, how flexible he is on the pitch in terms of his formation and his style, what he'll add to us and what he'll bring. And Abdul talks about it a lot, his player profile. He'll make sure the profile of the player, not just the ability, but the actual profile of the player fits not only the club off the pitch as well as on the pitch, but fits well within the unit. And I think we've been lacking that since Fergie, really. And even in Fergie's later years, actually, he never specifically went for a specific profile. He didn't bring Van Persie in just because of his profile. He put him in as a goal scorer, and Van Persie did that for us. He dragged a very, very weak team to the title. And I think Ten Hag's got the ability to even, if necessary, and I'm sure Mark will corroborate this when he talks about his, even play the very old-fashioned 4-4-2, which I think he's done in the past. And so for me, we've been crying out for a manager that has got the ability to look at modern football and what some people are now calling archaic football, which is a 4-4-2. I think he's a very modern manager with an Alex Ferguson streak to him. And I'm not comparing the two, but what I'm talking about is his personality. So I think from that point of view, I think the players are going to be up for quite a difficult task. He also plays a very ball-winning style of play, and I quite like that. I think Daley Blind was his main ball winner for Ajax this year. He's got a huge win percentage. It's over 70%. Again, Mark, you'll be able to correct me, but I think it's about 77, 78%. And the goal scoring, it's ridiculous in the amount of goals that they've scored, albeit in what could be perceived as a weaker league. But you're also, and I'll just finish off with this, you've also got to look at him as a personality, him as a human being, him as somebody who hasn't taken what is perceived to be an easy route now, going to, say, somewhere like Germany or an Italian club or sometimes even a Spanish club. He's come to a giant in the most difficult league with two teams that are probably, since the inception of the Premier League, been at a level never seen in English football before. Even surpasses in terms of their play and style of play our 99 team. And to have the balls to actually come to a club and try and re-drag them back to, I'm going to have to say, some kind of respectability, because we're not on respectability at the minute, are we? So some kind of respectability, and then push on again. I think it speaks volumes to the type of man that he is. So, yeah, really excited. I've tried to articulate it the best way I could without treading on people's toes, because I know Cal's done a lot of research, and I know Mark is here to talk, and Abdel's Abdel. So I hope that's a good opening statement for you.
Couldn't have asked for better, Stu. You never fail to surprise us. But I'll bring Mark in. Obviously, as I said, fantastic to have you on the show. Obviously, we'll talk about Ten Hag's setup and which players fit into it and this, that, and the other. But firstly, I just want to focus on Ten Hag, the man. You know, what's he like behind the scenes? What don't you see on the pitch that might make him a good fit for this Manchester United team?
Bless you. Yeah, so I think that his eye for detail, you will see on his play, his style of play on the pitch, but the effort and the work that goes into every little detail and the systems you have to play within Ten Hag game and training, the coaching sessions. He wants to have the players full on board on how he wants to play. That means that he has a philosophy, and that philosophy is not only about passing the ball this way or that way. You have to believe in the project, and that means that you have the right character to compete, to be in that squad. And like I said before, in terms of profiles, which you spoke of before, profiling is not only about the ability to play. So that's the difference between scouting and recruitment. But does the player fit? And does the player fit in the squad? Does the player fit in within the values of the club? That's very important, because if everyone is on board, from the players to the technical staff to the board to the hospitality workers, everyone within the club with the same goal, which is getting Ajax or getting Manchester United forward, that works, and that's very important for him as well. So everyone needs to have the same objective within the club, and that collective feeling of getting forward is something you might not see on the pitch when you watch games of Ten Hag, but yeah, that's very much something he wants, and that also can be seen in his other clubs before Ajax.
Definitely. Well, I'll bring Abdul in on this point then. Obviously, you know, we talk about, you specifically talk about, you know, getting the right players to fit a system. You know, we have a team of players who don't make a team. How exciting is it for you to have not only Erik Ten Hag coming in, who's got such a reliance on getting the right player, and then you've got a player like, a advisor like Ralf Rangnick, who hopefully will utilise in a semi-decent way, you know, working together to rebuild this team. How exciting is that for you?
It is very exciting. Like, I'm happy we did get him, and we're keeping Raniak. It shows a little bit of signs of improvement, you know. But the question remains with United. Like, most of my questions are still with United more than with Ten Hag himself. You know, it's like, are they gonna give him the full control he needs, because he's so hands-on? You know, full power over the players. His word goes over the players, you know, because again, Ten Hag is moving from the Eredivisie to the Premier League, where the Premier League has a different type of mentality and characters, and a lot of egos to deal with. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that the players at Ajax don't have egos, but they're very different to the Premier League players, right? And dealing with them is also very different. So his management of players will be tested to the limit, you know. And something like, for example, like most of the players that he had came through the academy of Ajax. A lot of them, not most of them, but a lot of them did. And when you're coming in from the academy and you're playing together, there's a sense of togetherness and familiarity and humbleness and willingness to work with each other. But if you look at United on the opposite end, there is no such things. They don't exist. There is no sense of familiarity. There is no togetherness. There's just a bunch of egos. Each player want to do the thing that they want to do. So it's gonna be tough, like it's gonna be tough. It's not a thing on Ten Hag, as I was saying earlier. It's not on him specifically. It's on the situation that the club is in and the different environment he's walking into. Because again, I've said this before, great managers are aided by great environments. It's the environments that they're in help them become the managers that they are, right? And our environment isn't really something that fills me with a lot of hope. Let's just put it that way.
Well, Cal, just finally touching on this before we move into the setup and everything. Just want to get your thoughts on. Obviously, there's reports that Ten Hag's a very straightforward manager. He's sort of a tough loving sort of thing, one strike and you're out sort of policy. Now we have a team which famously don't like that sort of thing. Are you worried about how these two might clash in terms of the manager and the team, or is it exciting for you in that this is what some of these players need to really kick them into gear?
It could be as much as they want or need. They can mess up like they have done as much as they have this season. They won't be here. Simple as that. And if that's the case, then good, because they shouldn't be at Man United anyway. They shouldn't be at Man United right now. They should, honestly, after Tuesday, they should never play for United again, regardless of who the manager is. He is very straightforward, and I don't think he takes any nonsense from his players, and I think he's got a style and a philosophy that if players don't buy into, he's happy for them to go. And I'm very happy with that. I think it was quite Fergie-esque. It was quite Busby-esque. It's the kind of thing that you probably need in a manager after the last probably 9-10 years. It really is needed. I think that comment is kind of perfect. I think everyone's very right to be excited by Ten Hag, but ultimately we have still got our scepticisms when it comes to the board. Ultimately, what Ten Hag can do is quite proven in terms of how he's been at Ajax. But at this stage, we need to have the right coaching staff behind him who will have the same philosophy as him. We will need to have the same recruitment structure who will buy into his philosophy to bring in the right players who will be able to further execute his philosophy. We need the ownership to allow the football side of operations to carry that out. And ultimately, I'm still on the side that I don't actually believe the Glazers will do that. At this stage, with the players that we have, there are going to be quite a few that will just simply have to play, and they will have to buy into his ideas, because fundamentally you cannot fix all these issues in one transfer window, especially with the amount of players out of contracts, especially with the amount of players that are likely to leave on very low transfer fees or just transfer fees in general. So I'd like to accept and hope that Ten Hag is aware of the scale of the job that's on his hands. I'd like to hope that he hasn't taken the job because it's just Manchester United. I'd like to hope he's gone, right, look, I'm not going to have you ruin my reputation. I would hope that you would give me the right amount of control to allow me to build what this club needs, which is a rebuild in terms of the players, a cultural reset in terms of the coaching, a cultural reset in terms of how the football side of things is run, a cultural reset in terms of putting football before business. And as long as all that happens, then Ten Hag will be a success. But at this stage, I think a lot of people are still right to be sceptical about that because we have the Glazers as owners. And I think it's as right as it is to be excited about this, it's still very right that we need to be clear on the path of getting the Glazers out with protests and however other issue that you deem fit. I'm very happy with him coming in. Of course I am. And I hope that it gives the players the kick that they need, because at this stage we are still fighting for a top 4 place. Amazingly that we are, but we are. So I'd like to hope that some of them realise that Ten Hag is going to be very different. He is going to be very straight with them and he is going to not take any crap from them. And I'd like to hope some of them are very aware that they're fighting for the place next season in this squad, because over the past probably 6 months, it's quite obvious that some of them don't care about the club. And if that's the case, then I'm hoping Ten Hag will see that as soon as he gets here and go, right, well, you shouldn't be here then, goodbye. So very happy but sceptical, and let's just see what happens at this stage. I think before the transfers get right, I think the backroom staff and the recruitment team and the technical and the football team we need to get that right before anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with you. Well, we'll move on to sort of the on the pitch antics that we'll see next season. Then, obviously, Mark, you've been tracking Ten Hag for a long time now. So, I'm trying to get my words out here. In terms of Ten Hag's style of play, what are we looking at? What have we got to look forward to? Is this a style of play that's been developed over a number of years that he's very assured of? Is this something that he's trying to now implement sort of later on? There's a lot of layers in this. So can you give us sort of a breakdown of what we can expect next season?
I think that most of you guys will be aware of how he did in Europe, because the Champions League runs, which have been famous and saw great performances, but domestically it's obviously different because it's a different type of football, and the opponents are different, and in Europe he could not be the dominant side and play from that, and domestically he needs to dominate because he had the best team in the league, and I think that's something he will set out to do with Manchester United as well, because the majority of the games you have to control, you have to dominate, you have to be high on the opponent's pitch and create a lot of chances. In terms of how he is developed at FC Utrecht, he didn't use fullbacks a lot as a weapon. He used the fullbacks to create space in the middle because he wanted to dominate the central zones. That's where everything happens for him. He wants to dominate the center of the pitch, and from there create 2 chances. So at Ajax, he has developed because Ajax has a philosophy of playing attractive attacking football. So it's not only about winning the game, but also how do you win. So use the wings a lot and use your fullbacks or wingbacks coming up from the field. So there's a great reliance on fullbacks. And what I wanted to say is that he has 2 types of fullbacks. I will use the players at Ajax. So you have Daley Blind, which has who has a playmaker role. So he doesn't go very often down the line and overlap, but he will basically invert into the half space, and in the half space he will be able to pass to in this case Tadic or to the middle, so he can dictate play from his position. So that's very important because from the half space it's very difficult to defend and make sure you have all things covered. On the other hand, the other fullback on the right side, Masraoui, who's playing very connected to the right winger, Anthony. So what the role of that fullback is to overlap and stay very close to the winger. So pass together and overlap and provide a cross, or other attacking players from midfield moving up the pitch. So I think the reliance on fullbacks is a big essence of his play. And currently he has in Haller, he has a big striker who can hold the ball, who is clinical in his finishing, and therefore it's also very important to have a 10 who is very, very dynamic, who's flexible, who can move around that central striker. So that's very important, and not only overlapping but also having numbers in the box. Because if you have a striker like that, you can make sure everyone's moving up the pitch, and then you have a lot of numbers. So if you are able to watch a few Ajax games in the Eredivisie, you will see that Ajax at some point will have many people in the box, but also midfielders like Gravenberg on the edge of the box waiting for a ball to drop, to be cleared, and then strike from the second line. So I think that in terms of dominating play, it's not only about attacking through wings, but also dominating every area of the pitch in terms of attack, obviously.
Interesting, very, very interesting. Stu, I'll come to you. This dependence on fullbacks, is that something that worries you? Because obviously we've been incredibly frustrated with ours. We know Luke Shaw can be a good fullback on his day. I think Tellez has sort of failed to impress, and the right backs are in a little bit of a poor state at the minute. Is this something that really concerns you?
Well, incidentally, I was going to touch on fullbacks as well, Mark. And so you make a good point about when he was playing at Utrecht. He played a standard, almost a 4-4-2. So he didn't rely heavily on the fullbacks. The fullbacks were there to defend. And he spreads the team across the pitch beautifully. He does it with Ajax, actually, in the 4-2-3-1 system. Certainly the three behind Haller is what you were talking about. They spread beautifully across the pitch. So when they are out of possession and they are looking to... they're not very, very quick, actually, in terms of their closing. It's a bit like Abdel was saying a few weeks ago, actually. If you remember, pal, we were talking about how to press, but just the space, not particularly the player. Just a space, and that's what they do very, very well. Ajax, they're brilliant at that. But Mark makes a great point about the fullbacks, because that's something that did worry me, because in the Ajax era, he is heavily reliant on his fullbacks, to create the transition. One of the things that and I can't remember the right back's name, so forgive me, but Anthony and the right back is, if he does overlap on Anthony will drop in 10 yards if he needs to cover the space. We don't have that currently. So if Wan-Bissaka was to go past Rashford, just as an example, Rashford won't drop in. He won't have any positional presence and awareness to think, right, if we lose the ball, i.e. the cross gets cut out and they're on the attack, there's nobody there. And this is one of the reasons why we have issues in centre half, because of people having to come across, not only step into midfield, but actually have to step in and cover the fullbacks. So I think Ten Hag will know that, and I think he'll whatever he does in terms of bringing in defenders. I mean, there is talk that we bring in Timber, isn't there? From what I can understand, he looks a great fullback to me. Big, strong, quick, can attack and can defend very, very well. It's almost the, and I hate to say it because I think Cancelo is an absolute poser. I can't be doing with him, but he's you can't disagree with him as a footballer. He's very, very good, and he adds a lot to what Manchester City do. So I do think the fullbacks was the area that I think he'll concentrate, as well as the holding midfielder. Because at Ajax, if I'm not mistaken, Mark, he runs with two holders, doesn't he? We call it a double pivot in England. God only knows why, because it isn't. It isn't. They're just two defenders. What I've noticed about them is they work together in tandem. They don't work as individuals. They work very well together in tandem. They cover each other nicely. They tend to go the 10 yards advance together and drop 10 yards together. So they make a brilliant block or a brilliant wall, as Cal had behind him, in front of the back four. And we need that currently with our centre-halves. Me and Abdel have been speaking about this with James for months, haven't we, pal? About the travelling distance between the centre halves and the defensive midfielders, and he's got that nicely. I think his biggest problem is going to be personnel. We don't have the right personnel within our squad that can help him. The only one I think he will utilise through the midfield is Bruno. I think what he might do is look at Bruno and look at the quality that Bruno can offer when he's on his game. By the way, I'm not talking about today's Bruno. I'm talking about Bruno from about 12 months ago, when he's on his game and he's dangerous and he's picking up the balls. You said, Mark, that their midfielders will pick up the ball at the edge of the area if Haller doesn't make the cross, etc. I think he'll include, if he's going to run with that system, I think Bruno's our perfect foil for that. But right now, currently, and I know Cal wants to touch on this anyway, so I'm not going to say any more. We haven't got the personnel to employ exactly, I think, how we want to play, Mark. I don't know what your thoughts are, but that's how I see it.
Well, I'll pass it over to Abdul. Obviously, we had a pretty in-depth look at how Ten Hag sets up for Mark. I just wanted to ask if you had anything to sort of add on to that, and then following on from that, which of these United players in the current squad realistically have a chance of still playing under Ten Hag in maybe 2 seasons when he's had time to suss it all out? You're muted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's very hard to predict who will be here in a year or two's time, because it depends on what happens with them, really. But if we're talking right now, or at least from what we have off the image we have of them when they were at least on form. The show's profile fits him very well right now. Sancho, who else? Fred as a ball-winning midfielder in the middle would fit him very well. Maguire, I have as a ball-playing center back would fit him, but also there's a catch to it because Ten Hag is a very, very risky, high risk, high reward manager in terms of how his center backs play. So he possibly could be very vital, but at the same time there is a question mark in my head on how he's going to use him. Bruno he could definitely play. Donny when he comes back from his loan from Everton. So we have quite a few that can fit him, but not enough to fit an 11 at the moment, basically. So he will have to adjust a little bit to the squad that he has at his disposal. But in the man, regarding how he plays, basically, Mark explained it very well, and I think the only little things that was left, and I think also will benefit us, is that Ten Hag is not the way he plays the possession ball is that a bit asymmetrical. So like Mark was saying, you have Daily Blind as a left back dictating the play from a little bit from the half space a little bit backwards, and you have Matsuri is the guy that goes forward and tries to combine with his winger. But Matsuri is very clever because he is very accustomed to Anthony. He knows when to do an overlap and when to just leave Anthony on a one-on-one, because they like to make these situations a lot for Anthony to either dribble past his fullback or whipping across from the wide area. The only issue is that Shaw can be that player in the half space, but on the other side, who will be the player that overlaps and understands who? Because we have a deficiency in the right hand side completely. Now, where I was saying we have a disadvantage is that we've been playing a bit asymmetrically under the previous manager as well, because we don't have the complete wide areas dominated. We're very left heavy, right? And the other question mark would be the center backs, because Ten Hag is very, very, again, I said it before, high risk, high reward, and he's very adventurous with the way his fullbacks move and build up, right? So one, his center backs have to be very, very good on the ball. Two, they have to be very, very good in 1v1 situations in the defensive transitions. So we have problems with that. Our center backs are not the best in 1v1s. So especially because he will require them to play a very high line, right? So yeah, there's a lot of adaptations that he will need to make, definitely, for this squad. It's not gonna be he comes in and he's gonna start playing his style right there and then. He can't do that. Definitely, he can't do that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a trust the process sort of thing, isn't it? But Cal, I'll bring you in on this. I'll integrate it with this question here that says, do you agree that if a major amount of sales don't happen, then nothing will really change? Now, obviously, you've done preparation on this, you'll like this, but we've discussed who stays realistically for United, who fits into this system. Now I want to flip it onto the other side and say who has to leave this summer, because I think there is going to be a bit of a queue out the exit door at Old Trafford this season.
I mean, the question's half easy, half hard, because effectively most of them should probably leave, because I don't think a lot of them suit Ten Hag. But obviously it's not a viable option. It's just simply not going to happen. I think Abdul was right with the high line thing. He does like a defensively high line. Maguire won't suit that. He won't. I think Maguire is so much better suited to a counter-attacking team. I think at the start of when he came in, when Ollie first brought him in, he was definitely a better centre-back for us because that was more of the style that Ollie played, simply because of the personnel we had. But once we started signing the likes of Bruno, we wanted to start dominating the ball that little bit more, and you did start to see the little weaknesses pop up into his game. I think every single player who's out of contract this summer should be gone, and that's Pogba, Mata, Cavani, Lingard, Matic and Grant. All 6 of them should be gone. So that'd free up quite a lot of the wage bill. So I'm hoping that would effectively filtering into how we do our business over the summer. And then, your obvious ones, so Phil Jones. So we're up to 7 now with Phil Jones. I think Eric Bailly will probably leave. Delo is touch and go. Pereira and Marshall will probably go. Twanzebe, I think you're looking at him possibly going because I can't see him being in the first team anymore, which is a little bit of a shame, but I think he'd go on to have a great career elsewhere. He's a very good defender. There's a couple more that I've actually put in myself. I have said De Gea. I think De Gea needs to leave because I think his weaknesses in his game when it comes to his distribution of the ball is just never going to suit Ten Hag. And I've put Maguire in there. I think this season more than anything has shown he is not someone that can lead Manchester United into that new next era. I don't think any of them players really should be there, given this season and given everything that's happened, and given the style of play that Ten Hag would likely to be employed for. Ultimately, it's not going to happen in one window, which is why I think if we were to compare it to Liverpool and Klopp and over the 3-4 years he had when he got to the first and second Champions League final, I think what was it, the Europa League final to maybe the second Champions League final? I think there was only 1 or 2 players even still in the squad, never mind the first team. I think if United are serious and don't try to spin a load of PR rubbish and are genuinely serious about trying to rebuild United into the top team that we once were, then in 2-3 years we should be seeing at least 15 players out and 10 players in with 5, 6, 7 promotions from the academy. I actually think that's what will happen. I think the likes of your Garner, your Medbris, they'll probably be brought in, and we might sign 4 or 5 in the summer. I can't see it being, because I think if we were to sign so many players, you've then got the struggle of integrating them into a new team as well. So you do have to look into the transfer market quite diligently and hope that you don't unsettle the squad even more, because you do need to probably do this in sections and do this in bits and pieces to try and bring in the right personnel. Just shipping in 10 new players isn't necessarily going to work. Like I say, I've probably listed 12, 13 players there that could probably leave, 6 of which are out of contract. I'm not saying all 12 will leave. I think all 6 who are out of contract will, but I don't think... I reckon we'll probably see 7 or 8 go in the summer. I'd be surprised if it's any more than that.
Fair enough. Well, quickly before we move on, I've got a question here that I've been holding off on. I'll hand it over to you, Mark, because you went into detail on sort of the fullbacks and everything. It asks, isn't Blind part of the defensive back 3 this season? Mazraoui is the one who inverts into midfield and links with high zones. Obviously, I'll ask you that question, but to add on to it as well, to see how we can relate it to United, how important is sort of a holding midfielder who can drop into defence and fullbacks who are comfortable on the ball and have the high enough IQ to tuck into midfield to this Ten Hag system? Could it possibly work without them? Because at the minute, I don't really think we have them at United.
So the system with Ten Hag, also when he plays a 4-2-3-1, it's in English it's the double pivot, but in the double pivot you have 1 6 and 1 8, and 1 is an 8. So the 8 is comfortably on the ball, is box to box, is very good progressive passing, and the 6 drops deep to assist 2 centre backs, and Blind is a bit more conservative in his positioning than Mazraoui, if we are talking about attacking phase of the game. So I think it's instrumental that the 6 in the spot, if it's a double 6 or 1-6, does know how to communicate with the central defenders, and also knows what the positioning is in the defensive phase of the game, and does know how to combine with the fullback in which the counterattack will come, or the positional play. In terms of Blind being part of the defensive back, it has happened, but that's not always the case. It depends on how Alvarez is playing at Ajax, and I'm not sure who will play from the Manchester United squad at the 6th position next season, but it's instrumental for that double pivot to break up. So one will assist the midfield and one will assist the defense. And in terms of a turnover, they both drop deep, and Masraoui is the type of fullback that covers ground quite quickly in terms, and Blind is not doesn't have the pace. And I think Luke Shaw is a kind of not the same player, but he will play more conservative in that sense that he can more easy assist in defense than in the case that he's overlapping. So I think the asymmetrical view of how fullbacks are standing in combination with where the 6 is playing is of vital importance in the transitional phase.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, Stu, I'll come to you on the next section. Then we're talking about Cummins. See, we all got a little bit excited when Ranić after the Liverpool game said there could be as many as 10 Cummins. I don't think that's quite realistic, but I think it's fair to say we're going to see a few new faces. So, is there? Well, I'll ask you for 2 targets that are realistic that you want to see coming through that suit Ten Hag's system to a T.
Yeah, look, I mean, I would only bring 3-4 max anyway, and I'd do that over 3 years. So I'll bring a series of 12 players in over 3 years to do it. And Carl's right, you've got to move them out. I think one of the new signings will actually be Donny van der Beek, which is strange because he's part of the setup already. But I think you will see Ten Hag utilise Donny to his very, very best. And one of the things that Don has been was really utilised well with Ajax was 3 positions. He played a 6, an 8, and a 10. And he played something like 13 games as a 6. He has got that about him. We never saw that, but we've had that about him, you know. And as far as I'm concerned, Donny's got the mindset to be able to play a 6. He's got the calmness and the guile to be able to play a 6. It's just whether or not Ten Hag will utilise that. In terms of, I'd like to see Anthony come in. I really would. I do like him. I think he's our type of player. I don't think he's you know, you could say he's a Ten Hag type of player, but I think he's a Manchester United type of player because he's quite a vibrant player, and we need that. We need somebody who's willing to go that extra yard. You could argue that we've had issues with Dutch players in the past, except Daley Blind, RVP, and of course my personal favourite, Big Rude himself. We've you know, other Dutch players, and I'm surprised Mark hasn't mentioned David Klaassen back in the Dutch league. He was terrible for Everton, but again he's found his form again, and he's got himself back into the Dutch national side. So they've got Dutch players have a real ability to unfortunately either fail or make it big. That's the problem that I've got with maybe chancing our arm on 1 or 2 Dutch players. So there's only one player I would have, and you know who he is, and he's just signed a new contract for Inter Milan, and that's my man Brozovic. He would be absolutely perfect for Ten Hag. Absolutely brilliant. He can play as a holding, but he's a great box to box as well. Good in the air, great tackler. I'm not going to get me wish with Brozovic. I thought I would, but I'm not going to get my wish with him. So Anthony for 1, and I think Donny. I'm going to go with Donny because I think Donny's going to be instrumental. Actually, I really do. But people would completely disagree with me, and they'll go on the basis that, well, Ollie didn't fancy him, and neither did Ranić. But it's a completely different puzzle with Ten Hag. Ten Hag knows him inside out and knows how to utilise him and play him. So those are the 2 I would see coming back.
Fair enough. Abdul, I'll come to you. Looking at this United team, you said it wasn't perfectly set up for Ten Hag to come in and take over. Are there two positions that you have in mind that are desperately needed to be fixed to get him going? And if so, which two players are you plugging those holes with?
The 6 and the right wing, definitely. The 6 and the right wing, like more than any other.
Go on, Abdul.
No, because like I know he's playing Alvarez right now in the 6, so they're not relying on the 6 to progress the play as much as other teams. Basically, he's using the fullbacks. I mean, Daley Blind mainly, and his center backs for that. But we definitely need a 6 because it will free the 2 8s or free the 10 and the 8, because in the center of the pitch, Ten Hag relies a lot on third man runs, right? So you'd see, for example, your striker vacate his central position, drops in one, and then by moving the center backs with him, one of the 8s or the 10, whatever you want to call them, would run into that space, and then the striker or the 9 would lay off a pass, and then the 8, so one of the midfielders that didn't move in with the third man run, would lay off the pass to the one that ran in space. So there's a lot of combinations and movement in the center of the midfield as well. But to have the security, you need the 6, and we don't have a 6. So let alone we have a 6 that's not that good. We just don't have a 6, right? So like definitely that position needs to be filled, and then also the right wing, because as you've seen with United, why did United struggle for so long against low blocks, whether under Oli or under Mourinho? Because they're lopsided, because they rely on one side only, and because they can't effectively stretch the pitch very wide. And that's one of the principles for Ten Hag. He has to spread. He needs to stretch the opposition both horizontally and vertically, right, to create those spaces so that they have the time to make these movements and third man runs. If you don't have someone who can hold the width on the right wing, assuming that the right back is a bit reserved, right, or the fullback, one of them, whatever it is, one has to hold the width, and we don't have many players that can hold the width. Rashford wants to cut in all the time. He's not really hold the width type of guy. Sancho can do it, but then that's it. Like we don't have many other options. Alanga is more of like a striker kind of guy, so he's also not the best at holding the width. Now, obviously, these things can change a little bit because someone like Alanga, someone like Sancho can, follow instructions much better than a lot of other players. So you might see Alanga try to get instructions to hold the width and try to stretch blocks and stuff like that. But then it becomes more about combination play, because Alanga isn't the guy to receive the feet. He's the guy to receive a ball over the top with runs. So a lot of adjustments will have to be made. But at the end of the day, the two concepts that we really need, at least for the majority of the opponents against the majority of the opponents in the league, is effectively stretching the pitch using like a wide player, a right winger, and defensive security using a 6, right? And we have neither. So that's why, like, one of the reasons we're bad at defensive transitions is also because of that. Obviously, Ten Hag uses one of the fullbacks to cut in as a third man currently. So that might be enough for now. But at the end of the day, they're not the best at doing that. So we'll still need we definitely need a 6, especially also if you want to win the ball back quickly when you lose it, because that's one of his concepts, right? Counter pressing, but not ball oriented, more of like zone oriented. Like, I don't know if he switches between them. I haven't watched Ajax enough this season to know if he switched between ball-oriented counter pressing or zone-oriented counter pressing. Mark would know more than me. But also to have that, you need the right players in the midfield that can win the ball quickly, and very, very crucial, are very aware of their positions. Because we have players that can win the ball, but they're not very aware of their positions. Their positioning is woeful.
Maguire.
You probably know who I'm talking about.
Sorry, I just had a bad cough.
No, bless you, man. It's all good. But you probably know who I'm talking about in terms of positioning, bad positioning.
Well, crikey, Abdul, you could be talking about 10 players, mate. Unfortunately,
No, well, in the middle of the pitch, so it's probably Scott McTominay. Even, by the way, even Nemanja Matic, like, I've been noticing that he's overcommitting and making a lot of basic errors for a natural defensive midfielder, someone like him with the experience that he has. So, yeah, we need a complete fresh mindset. But again, the two positions that are important, defensive midfielder and right winger.
Do you know what? I've done so much research on Ten Hag today about how he plays, what he likes, what he doesn't like, blah, blah, blah. And Mark and Abdel have said absolutely. It's like they've seen my notes and they've read it out. It's really annoying because I was really proud of myself. Go on, James.
Well, we all knew you've got it in your noggin. That's all that matters, isn't it, really? But
I can't believe you had to research him. What's all that about?
Well, I wanted to be more clued up than, he's good at Ajax, isn't he?
It's commitment to the channel, Stu. Come on.
Absolutely.
But Cal, I'll come to you.
When you go on like really big channels, you have to do a bit of research, Stu.
Well, yeah.
By the way, comment on Donny. I don't know what Donny's issue is with the two managers that played him. Like, I know he wasn't in Ollie's plan. That's why he just never bothered playing him. But like with Ranić, for example, I thought he might get a chance, especially that he's a high energy player. And I think it's actually just more of physicality, like they've been saying. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he can't. I don't know if he can't handle it or can handle it, but maybe it's not enough at times. I don't know what his issue is. But if Ten Hag uses him, it will be more of a 10 or an advanced 8. I highly doubt it will be a 6, because even when he did play a 6 under Ten Hag, he played it because they had injuries and didn't have replacement in midfield.
Yeah, I don't think the blame is.
And then Ajax were open to attacks because Donny's positioning in deep areas is not that good. And we already have that problem.
I don't expect him to play him as a 6, but he's one of those players that are ultra frustrating. We've got 2 or 3 of them in the squad. I talk about this a lot, and I talk about knowing your value to the squad and knowing that, you know, if there's 2 or 3 players within a certain position and you're not getting a look in, there isn't a, you know, professional footballers of any, well, actually footballers of any ability, you know, can readjust their game. And it doesn't take a huge amount to readjust your game. Certainly as a 6, it's not one of the easiest positions on the pitch, but it's one of the better positions to be able to adjust because, you know, Mark mentioned it before, communication, and I talk about this all the time anyway, you know, communication between the 2 centre-halves and the 6 is absolutely critical. You know, the 2 centre-halves are the one that really can see everything. But I just think that Donny, if he kind of believed in himself more, I'm not just talking about Donny, actually, I'm talking about players like Tuanzebe is a great example. If he actually believed in themselves more, I'm not saying you go through a complete reinvention, but you allow yourself to become indispensable. And the greatest example of that I've seen recently is Llorente at Athletic Madrid. You know, a couple of seasons ago, he was scoring through midfield, attacking midfield, 2 goals at Anfield to knock him out the Champions League. He pops up at right back against us, and he's like he's been there for years. It's a player who's, you know, who looks at his own ability and starts to work out where he can affect, you know, himself on the team. And I just think Donny's not done that, and I think Donny should do that. And I'm not saying he's suited to a 6, you know, but I think there's a player in there that if he thought about it and you know, added a bit of logic to what he does on a football pitch, he can actually play there. you know, and he could do a job for us because he's got the intelligence to do it. The
I
problem
don't think he's got the physicality of it, though, Stu.
Maybe not at the minute. He may, you know, that's something he's got to work on. He does have to work on that, and you know, but the problem that we've got is, and I think we'd all agree on this panel, we're not physical anyway. As a team, as a unit, we're not physical. I'm an old school player, so I would go in and I would have absolutely clattered Thiago on Tuesday night. Absolutely clattered him. I would have I'd have done it 2 or 3 times, take the yellow card, but. Sometimes
it's just a shame it took a reserve player to do that, though.
Well, it's too late, you know, with 9 minutes to go or 7 minutes to go, whatever it was. You've got to do that in there. That's what a midfielder, a good, solid defensive midfielder is there to break up the play, understand the play, start moving the forwards in and around him, the midfielders in and around him to positions that were being overrun and absolutely clatter the playmaker. That's what he's there for. And then in the defensive third, to make sure that there's a decent amount of gap between him and the 2 centre halves. It isn't too deep, so you get no 10 running in between. And that's the issue. With regard to Garner, just one thing quickly, just with regard to Garner, he's not ready yet. I think he's going to need a loan in the Premier League, Crystal Palace, Brighton. Then I think he'll be ready.
I think the only way of finding that out, Stu, at this point, with the way it's been this season, I kind of hit the point now where I don't see an issue in giving him a go.
He'll push him in pre-season.
I think he'll definitely be there pre-season, and I think that's when he'll be assessed. But I'm assuming James was going to ask me the same question. Anyway, what were you going to ask me, James, about the transfers or something? Or
I was going to ask you. Obviously, we've spoken about right wingers and defensive midfielders. I want to talk to you about a striker because obviously United are going to need one very quickly. We're currently relying on Ronaldo. His legs are only going to keep getting worse by the week, especially into next season. So, is there a player in Europe that you have sort of pinpointed as not only a good striker for United, but a good striker for Ten Hag that we can bed in maybe next season alongside Ronaldo, and then he's ready to take the mantle after that?
With very little knowledge and research about him, I've seen a lot of links to that Darwin Núñez at Benfica. Now, I only watched him against Liverpool. I've not really watched him much else, but he seemed a very intelligent, fast, very clinical striker. So that and to be fair, it's a shame of me really, but I am only basing it on that game. But from that, I'd probably be if you could base it on one match, I'd probably be happy with him coming in. I think a big issue, and I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised Abdel didn't say it. To be fair, there's going to be a rebuild, and a lot of people are saying about these signings coming in. You can't build a team around Ronaldo. At this stage in his career, he's 37. You need to look at you're not even necessarily replacing him, but playing him less. And I don't think he's probably one of the ones that needs to be replaced first. I'd actually say striker and number 6 are probably the first 2, maybe. I know we're speaking about 2 signings coming in. Stu, I think I can't remember what you said now. Did you say right winger and? What did you say now? I can't remember.
6 and right wing. Same as Abdel.
Yeah, I think you said the same, didn't you, Abdel? It's not. We shouldn't be confining it to 2. I know that was kind of the question, but we really do need to be looking at least 4 or 5 because and this is where recruitment comes into it and getting that structure above Ten Hag is so vital because if we can get that, if we can get that, and we can search the market for the right player for the right price, we could easily bring 4, 5, 6 players in that could genuinely change this squad completely around.
The problem is we don't have one priority or 2 priorities. We have about 5 or 6 priorities. Like
I think with Pogba leaving, I think that probably pushes the midfield to a probably number 1 priority. The number 6 was needed already. Pogba going is definitely probably forced us into the market for 2 midfielders. To be fair, just seeing the comment then about Núñez, I have very little knowledge of him, to be fair. So I have seen a lot of links to him, and from what I've heard, he's a very good player. And when I watched him against Liverpool, he was very good. But other than that, I can't really comment. I wouldn't really even know because there's just not that many strikers you could think of at the minute who could come in. So off the top of my head, I probably couldn't tell you. I don't know. I wouldn't even say Harry Kane because I think that the price of him would be insane. But I think United should be genuinely looking at a right winger, a striker, 2 midfielders, a right back, and a centre back. I think that's 6 positions that we could with. If we could get 5 or 6 players with the likes of Garner, Mebry, and Van der Beek coming back, you've effectively got 9 players to bring into the team there. I think as a centre back, I think Schlotterbeck from Freiburg would be a brilliant signing.
Nice.
I think
nice.
I think Ruben Neves from Wolves would be good. I think we could probably pick him up for a good price. Schlotterbeck would be a very good price. So you fixed a big issue in 2 positions there.
Do you know what I go for? Do you know
Go
what I go for? Centre half or right-sided player, Kilman from Wolves, Max Kilman.
Yeah, I mean it's a shout, I guess. I mean, just statistically, look at I know other YouTubers and experts have done a bit of research on Schlotterbeck, and he does seem to be very good at progressing the ball forward and finding the right pass and
he is
communicating with his midfield and keeping the line quite strong. I think a Schlotterbeck and Neves would sort out 2 major positions. The Pogba replacement, I probably wouldn't get into. I wouldn't know who we could get for a good price. Maybe a T. Elemans from Leicester, something like that. But right wing, an Anthony from Ajax, and Nkunku from Leipzig. These players are available because this is what I'm saying. If we have that structure above Ten Hag, if we have the likes of Rangnick, I think one of the most important signings we could make this summer isn't a player; it's Paul Mitchell to work alongside Rangnick. Oh, I did not know that. That is a massive shame because that is. Do you know what? Dortmund's recruitment is fantastic. I didn't know that. I'd not heard that. But if that's the case, then
I've seen a lot of things around it.
They're also getting the young striker from Salzburg. The recruitment at Dortmund is absolutely brilliant, and it's something that United could really learn from because that's a player right there that United should have gone hell for leather for, I think, and it's a shame that we probably haven't even heard of him, to be honest. So effectively, I think the likes of bringing in someone like Paul Mitchell to help with the recruitment would be brilliant. But United are going to have to really do some due diligence this summer for their transfers because it is very important. Because with Haaland going to City, with Newcastle's money, Liverpool are only going to get better. Chelsea, it looks like their owner situation is going to get sorted in the next month or 2. So with this happening, United can't afford to get it wrong because I'm very aware that it's going to be a bit of a transition, but we still want to, as fans, see wins and good football. And as long as I'm seeing effort and some kind of tactical employment into the games, then and progress is all I want to see. I think next season, I think that's probably going to be the number one thing because all the other teams around us are also going to get better. So we can't afford to be left behind even further because we're already playing catch up because of the shambolic era of the last 17 years, but in particular the last 9 years since Ferguson retired.
Fair enough. Yep. I think that's a pretty reasonable point to end on. We've got it to an hour. Stu's got a run off and do whatever Stu does in his spare time. But yeah, we'll end it there. Massive thank you to you four for joining me, especially Mark. Really appreciate you joining us and giving us a real in-depth insight into Ten Hag. Thank you as well to everyone who joined in the comment section as well. Obviously, you add to our conversation immensely, so thank you for that. If you did enjoy it, be sure to like and subscribe. Obviously, keep an eye out for tonight's show at 10, where we're going to be discussing Ten Hag more, a bit more of a fun reaction to it, just adding a few more little details. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, like and subscribe. But until next time, we'll see you later.